Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier, and this is the Piracy Show. Now, in today's show, we're going to be talking about the scanning system. Now, the scanning system, of course, we got a lot more detail on today in ATV, and this is kind of one of those situations that I enjoy. These are the videos I prefer to make, honestly, and that is when we get to look at a system and it's just like, holy crap, that is perfect. That is so good. And honestly, it was one of those things when I was watching the footage, all of a sudden the wheels start turning in my head. And instead of sitting there and going like, oh, that's going to be a problem. Oh, this could be an issue. Oh, that could be exploited. Or, yeah, that could have a much more open view. But it's one of those situations where instead of thinking about that, now I'm thinking possibilities. How can I use this system? How can I defend against the system? I like the fact that it's based off of almost an active sonar search where you ping outwards and then you get returns on the objects that are out there. You move in closer, you scan, you get much more detailed information, but it also alerts the player or object that you are scanning them. So you may get a hostile reaction from that. And that was great. Now, of course, the visuals of the system aren't really there, but we already know that these are temporary visuals and they plan to be enhanced in the future. And I'm fine with that. I mean, I've said it before. I'm not really so much a guy who worries about how something looks. I worry about how it works and if it works at all. And the scanning system, when I was watching this video, all of a sudden, these questions start popping up in my head and I'm thinking, well, what if you had a much larger ship, let's say an Idris, and you wanted to hide the fact that you had escort fighters? We had heard a long time ago in one of the 10 for the Chairman episodes where people were asking, if I fly close enough to a ship, could I be obscured by that ship? Could someone not see me by that ship? I would like to know much more updated information on that let's say the ship has a much larger EM signature and a much larger thermal signature. If a little fighter creeping right beside it might not be completely occluded by the emissions of that much larger ship, how close would you have to fly to set that off or to get that type of protection almost? Those are, some of the possibilities. Also, line of sight. Like, let's say we shoot that beam outwards in, a giant sphere and it hits an asteroid. If something is behind that asteroid, does the asteroid basically create a sensor shadow behind it where you can't see beyond that? I think that's an interesting question, and I would like to see that one answered. Now, some people might say, well, of course you wouldn't want to know that because you're a pirate and you're evil and you plan to use it to grief and to hurt people's emotions. And I'd be like, no, think about it from a miner's point of view. I mean, we were seeing the prospector at work here. Think about it. If you could get up close to a sufficiently large asteroid, maybe that would be kind of almost a natural defense mechanism for a small-scale mining ship, especially like the prospector, where you can basically get close enough to an asteroid that anyone trying to actively search for you or even passively search for you may not be able to see you unless they really kind of go all around the asteroid and make a visual search as well, or at least move into a position or an angle where your ship's emissions, your EM and your thermal emissions, are no longer blocked by that asteroid, by that or whatever physical object you happen to be sitting next to. I also like the fact that the active pulse is something that lights you up. It's kind of like it's a sword that cuts both ways. It reveals your position to everything in the area, but it also may reveal some things that you may not see that are sneaking up on you. Now, this is all really good and really cool stuff. Obviously, radar, sonar play a huge role in influencing this system and how it's evolving in the game. But for those of you that don't want to be detected, I think that there's an interesting gameplay element that we could bring into this for the passive side that would be really fun. I think that if we kind of pull the idea of passive systems also from the radar sonar ideas and bring them into Star Citizen, possibly in a way involving a special avionics package or a ship that has multiple crew stations that would allow you to devote someone to this task within your ship, I think there's a possibility of a very interesting and fun gameplay mechanic that you could bring into this. And that's the idea of hooking up the sensors to a passive waterfall display, so it also adds in not just the signals that you're receiving, but it adds in the factor of time, allowing you to see patterns within kind of the static and the background noise of space, and possibly look out with your sensors, so to speak, and pick up different types of signals. You may tune into a certain band and detect, oh, I think I hear Nova Rider signals over here, whereas over there I hear the UEE Navy chatter. And I think that that could be a really cool idea in a way, hooking that into your sensors to then allow you to designate a signal and then say, hey, localize this, find out where it is because I want to go check it out. I think something like that, especially on ships equipped with multiple crew stations and very strong sensors, or possibly even something like the Herald, which is equipped to kind of pick up signals and send signals, would be something really fun to have in game. This is not something that I consider to be a must-have, but I think it's something that would fit in the column of would be nice to have. Therefore, you would kind of get this really interesting gameplay mechanic, not only for active sensors, but for passive ones as well. But overall, looking at the very first iteration, the beginning iteration of this active scanning technique and the system that they're developing, I do have a few questions. I think they're fairly important questions about line of sight and things like that, but I think that they are heading in a very solid direction, and I really like it. Oftentimes with games, this is something that is seen as, not that important, not something that they really want to focus on, and they just kind of want to give players basically a gimme, something that you just, if you're within 10 kilometers, you see everything. If you're not, you don't. Whereas this, it gets players involved, and it involves possibly teamwork on certain ships where you have someone designated to that task. And I really like that. That's the kind of depth that I really like when you're kind of looking at things like this. And so this is one of the systems in Star Citizen that I am really looking forward to playing around with. Sadly, I don't own a Prospector, but then again, I never really intended to go mining. But as this system expands onto other ships beyond 3.2, I don't know, maybe in 3.3 or beyond that, I'm really looking forward to playing around with it and seeing what's possible. Not so much from the mining perspective, but in different ways. Anyways, that's the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.